Did you just find out that there are multiple choice questions on the AP Language and Composition exam, and now you're starting to freak out? Does your friend Gwennifer always seem to get all the practice questions right on the MCQs, but you don't even know what's going on? If this sounds like you, don't fret, because after this video, you'll be an AP multiple choice MCQ genius. The multiple choice questions on the AP Language and Composition test can be a little bit tricky, but a little bit of knowledge and technique can go a long way to increasing your score. Yes! First, you should know that the AP Language and Composition test is divided into two sections, the multiple choice questions and the essay test. The MCQs are about 45% of your grade. The essays are 55. If you're interested in the essay questions, you should watch some of my other videos. Today, we're just dealing with the multiple choice questions, or MCQs. The MCQs will be 45 questions, and you'll have an hour to finish them. You'll be given 5 passages to read, and each passage will have around 10 questions. Each question will have around 4 possible answers. Whoa. But you should also know that the MCQ section is going to be divided into 2 parts. There will be a reading section that asks you to analyze passages for style, content, structure, organization, rhetorical choices, and rhetorical appeals, and answer questions based on that. There are 2 sets of questions in the reading sections, totaling 23 to 25 questions. And you'll have one old text that may have archaic language and one contemporary text that will probably be easier for you to read. The writing section is going to resemble draft writing. It's going to ask you to make suggestions for revisions from the perspective of the writer. There will be 3 sets of writing passages, and they're going to total 20 to 22 questions. The MCQ questions are going to test 4 primary skills: your ability to assess the rhetorical situation, your ability to see claims and evidence, your ability to read for reasoning and organization, and your understanding of style. And that's about all you need to know. Just kidding. There's a lot more to know. Today's helper is the Licky Boy. If you think it would be helpful to have a kitten laying around when you're making your YouTube videos, kind of like bapping things over sometimes, then you would really like being helped by this Licky Boy. He likes to lay there and to purr and to just basically be adorbs. He's a baby boy. He's a baby boy. He's a baby boy. That's a helper. There are basically 2 tasks involved in answering the MCQ questions. One is reading the passages, and the other is choosing which question you think is right. First, read the introductory information given about this passage. If it exists at all, it's going to be very short, but you should still read it. For example, the introductory information for this first passage reads, "This passage is excerpted from a recent work that examines Benjamin Franklin, an 18th century thinker, political leader, and scientist from a contemporary perspective." This actually tells me a lot because it tells me that this is a nonfiction text published relatively recently, and it also tells me who Benjamin Franklin is, in case you don't already know that. Next, read the passage actively. Read with curiosity and look for structure, claims, and rhetorical choices and appeals that you find this author to be using a lot. You should read it fast and get a general sense of these issues because you can come back for the details later. Don't worry if you don't understand words or even whole sections of the passage. You can come back to the difficult words later if it's necessary, and sometimes earlier portions of the passage will make sense later once you read the later sections. The key thing for you to do is to read and keep your face moving up and down on the screen and do not stop. Keep reading. Once you've read the passage, go to the questions. Answering the questions has its own strategy that you need to apply. Some questions will be about the passage as a whole, but some other questions will just be about specific parts of the passage. The questions will tell you what section of the passage is relevant to that question. For example, this question specifies paragraph 3 because it says, "The misunderstanding discussed in paragraph 3 is that many who study Franklin blank." After you read the question and go to the relevant portion of the passage, you should think of an answer to the question. But don't be committed to that answer because it might not be among the multiple choice answers. You should use the process of elimination to narrow down your choices. Some of the answers are going to be clearly wrong, and they're going to be much different from your answer. However, the AP language and composition test is mean, and it knows how you think. The AP will try to mislead you with what are called distractors, which are meant to distract you from the right answer. There's three main types of distractors. One is where the answer has two parts, but only one of them is correct. If only one part of the answer is correct, eliminate that answer. Another is where the answer is a true thing about the passage, but it just doesn't answer the question that's being asked. You should also eliminate those answers. Finally, some questions might be a vague version of the correct answer. This is why you should always read all of the answers carefully, because you might end up with a situation where both answers seem kind of right, but one is much more specific. In this case, eliminate the vague version. After you've eliminated as many answers as you can, hopefully then you've got just the right one. At this point, you should choose the answer, be decisive, and move on. You are allowed to mark the questions to go back to them, but I would not advise this because then you have to start your whole process of reasoning over. Be decisive, choose an answer, move on. You should move on because you need to answer all of the questions. Your score is based on the number of right answers, so there's no benefit to you leaving any of them blank. If you find yourself running out of time, just choose a bunch of answers. Let's see if we can apply what we've learned based on one of the questions we've already looked at. The question that asks you to look at paragraph 3 and identify the misunderstanding discussed in that paragraph. Go ahead and read what I've got on the screen here. I'll pause for a second while you do that. Great. Now let's look at the answers. A is that the misunderstanding is that many people ascribe a greater geniality to Franklin than his actions support. So this is where it gets kind of hard, because even if you don't possibly need to understand all of the words in the passage, you're going to have to understand the words in the answers, or you might be at a little bit of a disadvantage. I have to know that geniality means basic good-naturedness or a general inclination of kindness toward others. This one seems like a maybe because the passage says that he's kind of an exemplar of personal character and civic virtues, which does seem kind of genial. So I'm going to leave that one possible. The other one says you might confuse Franklin's public statements with his private beliefs. Another, they believe Franklin had a fundamental faith that, in fact, he lacked. Now I can see that even though I was pointed to paragraph 3, I had to read paragraph 4 in order to answer the question, because right here it says that at the end, they mistake his genial moral maxims for the fundamental faiths that motivated his actions. This question talks about a fundamental faith, but the passage does not say that he lacked a fundamental faith. This question is trying to trick me into answering it. It's wrong, though. It's just that it might appear attractive because it repeats exact words from the passage. You should eliminate question C. Question D says that many who study Franklin relied too much on government records in their analysis of him. I didn't see anything about government actions in that passage, so I can eliminate D. That leaves us with A or B that are possible answers. And I think the key sentence for understanding the correct answer is where it says, but the lessons from Franklin's life are more complex than those usually drawn by either his fans or his foes. Both sides too often confuse him with the striving pilgrim he portrayed in his autobiography. The portrayal in his autobiography would have been a public statement. And that, I think, is the key sentence that leads me to the correct answer. Continuing with paragraph 4, it says that they mistake his general moral maxims for his fundamental faiths. The general... Oh my gosh, now I see another trick that AP is trying to make because it uses the word genial here in this passage, which leads me to think that maybe A is the correct answer, but I'll tell you a secret, it is not the correct answer, because when it talks about they mistake his genial moral maxims for the fundamental faiths that motivate his actions, that's talking about the genial moral maxims in his autobiography, which are the public statements, and the fundamental faiths are the private beliefs. So I can now see that question B is clearly the right answer, and I would mark B and I'd move on and be decisive. My final tip for you is that you should go into the AP multiple choice questions with a strategy. What that strategy is, though, depends on you. Hold on, Licky Boy needs to come in. You might choose to prioritize one set of questions over the other. For example, maybe you know that you think you're better at the reading questions than the writing questions. In that case, you should pick the reading questions over the writing questions. Maybe... Ow! Claw! Lick! Come on, stop it. If you know that you're better at reading contemporary passage over the archaic passages, maybe you should do the writing before the reading, because you know that the reading will have at least one archaic passage. And finally, whether you pick the easiest or the hardest for you just depends on your personality. You might be somebody who likes to get all the easy ones done and then have more time later for the harder ones, or you might like to do the harder ones first so you get those over with and you can relax more. You have to choose the best strategy for you, because I don't know exactly what you're like. All right, and that's the deal with AP Language and Composition MCQs. I've given you an overview of the MCQ part of the test and some strategies for how to approach the different types of questions on the test. I'm going to do you a favor, and I'm going to make you additional videos that specialize on how to do AP reading questions and AP writing questions. So make sure to subscribe so you get notifications for those videos. Yes, thanks for watching Zubify. Remember to come back for more Zubify.